Finals week at the university always brought a peculiar energy to campus. The air felt charged with a mix of anxiety, determination, and the faint scent of too much coffee. But nowhere was this energy more palpable than in the university library. It was a sanctuary for some, a prison for others, but for everyone, it was unavoidable. The massive stone building with its towering windows and endless rows of books became the epicenter of student life during these crucial days. I remember that particular Tuesday afternoon vividly. The sky outside had darkened prematurely, threatening rain that never came. Casting the library's main hall in a strange twilight glow despite the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I had claimed my usual spot on the third floor, tucked away in the literature section where fewer students ventured. The literature stacks were my haven, tall shelves filled with classics, criticism, and obscure poetry collections that seemed to absorb sound and create a pocket of perfect silence. My name is Alex, and as a literature major with a focus on 19th century British novels, I had developed a reputation for disappearing during finals week, emerging only when absolutely necessary, my eyes slightly unfocused from reading too long in dim light. I wasn't antisocial, exactly, just intensely focused. My friends understood this about me, which is why I was surprised when someone slid into the chair across from me, disrupting my carefully constructed bubble of concentration. Mind if I join you? Every other table is taken, and you look like someone who won't talk my ear off. The voice was warm, slightly amused, and belonged to a face I recognized but couldn't immediately place. Jamie. We'd shared an elective class on media studies the previous semester, though we'd barely spoken. Where I was reserved and methodical, Jamie was all charisma and quick thinking, a communications major who could charm professors into extending deadlines and make friends within minutes of meeting someone new. I nodded, trying not to show my annoyance at the interruption. Sure, just. I gestured vaguely at my spread of books and notes, a silent plea for respect of my space and silence. Jamie grinned, understanding immediately. Don't worry, I'm in stealth mode today. You won't even know I'm here. And surprisingly, that promise held true for almost 2 hours. We worked in companionable silence, the only sounds the turning of pages and the occasional sigh or shift in position. I found myself stealing glances when I thought Jamie wasn't looking, noticing things I hadn't before. The way Jamie's brow furrowed slightly when concentrating, the habit of twirling a pen between fingers when thinking, the soft smile that appeared when reading something apparently amusing. It was during one of these stolen glances that the library's intercom system crackled to life, startling us both. Attention, all library patrons and staff. This is an emergency lockdown drill. I repeat, this is a drill. Please follow all lockdown procedures immediately. This is not an actual emergency, but the drill should be treated as such. Follow staff instructions and remain in place until the all clear is given. Again, this is only a drill. The announcement repeated once more before cutting off, leaving a moment of stunned silence before the library erupted into a mixture of groans, whispers, and the scraping of chairs. I'd never experienced a lockdown drill at the university before, though we'd received emails about the possibility. The timing couldn't have been worse, right in the middle of finals week when every minute of study time was precious. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, watching as library staff began to move with surprising efficiency, directing students away from windows and into secure areas. Jamie leaned forward, voice lowered. Have you done one of these before? I shook my head. Never. I didn't think they actually did them during finals. Bad timing, but I guess emergencies don't check your schedule first, Jamie replied with a wry smile that somehow eased my irritation slightly. A librarian appeared at the end of our row, gesturing urgently. You two, come with me. We need to move everyone deeper into the stacks, away from the main areas and windows. We gathered our belongings quickly, following her through the maze of bookshelves. The literature section was already one of the more isolated areas of the library, but she led us even further back, to a narrow section between two tall stacks where medieval literature met early Renaissance texts, a quiet corner rarely visited even during normal times. Stay here until the all clear. Should be about 30 minutes, but these things sometimes run long. Stay quiet, stay put. She gave us a stern look that suggested this wasn't her first rodeo before disappearing to round up other students. And just like that, Jamie and I found ourselves alone, wedged between towering shelves of books in a space barely 6 feet wide. The sounds of the library, the shuffling of papers, whispered conversations, even the perpetual hum of the ventilation system seemed distant here, creating an almost unsettling quiet. "Well," Jamie said, dropping a backpack to the floor and sliding down to sit against one of the shelves, "this is cozy." I remained standing for a moment, unsure of the protocol. Was sitting on the floor during a drill allowed? But as the silence stretched and my bag grew heavy, I relented, settling down opposite Jamie, our knees almost touching in the narrow space. So much for productive study time, I sighed, checking my watch. If the drill really lasted 30 minutes, that would be a significant chunk of my carefully planned schedule thrown into disarray. Jamie studied me with curious eyes. "You really take your studying seriously, don't you?" "I have to. My scholarship depends on maintaining a 3.8 GPA, and Victorian literature isn't exactly light reading." I didn't mean to sound defensive, but something about Jamie's casual attitude toward academics had always slightly irritated me. "Hey, I didn't mean anything by it. I respect the dedication." Jamie's voice softened. "Communications might not have the same reading load, but we have our own pressures. 3 presentations due this week, and I still have to finish editing a short documentary." I felt a twinge of guilt for my assumption. "Sorry, I didn't mean to snap. Finals week brings out the worst in me." "In everyone," Jamie agreed with a laugh. "Last year, I saw a guy cry over a spilled coffee in the student union. Full breakdown, like his life was over. I bought him a new one, and he hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack." The mental image made me smile despite myself. The great coffee crisis of 2022. I remember the rumors. That was me. I'm the mysterious coffee savior. Jamie placed a hand over heart in mock solemnity. My one good deed of the semester. And just like that, the tension between us dissolved. As minutes ticked by, our conversation flowed more easily than I would have expected. We discovered mutual interests beyond academics, a shared love for obscure indie films, a similar taste in music, and the same favorite coffee shop just off campus where we'd apparently been crossing paths for years without really noticing each other. "How have we never really talked before?" Jamie asked, genuinely puzzled. "We had Professor Martinez's media class together last semester." I shrugged, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting in the narrow space. "I tend to keep to myself in larger classes. And you were always surrounded by people." My adoring public," Jamie joked, but then grew more serious. "Sometimes being the social one is just as isolating as being alone. Everyone wants the performative version of you, you know? The one with all the jokes and stories. They don't actually want to know what keeps you up at night." The vulnerability in that statement caught me off guard. I'd always seen Jamie as the epitome of effortless sociability, someone who moved through the world with an ease I could only envy. This glimpse beneath the surface was unexpected. "What does keep you up at night?" I asked softly, genuinely curious. Jamie seemed surprised by the question, as if not expecting me to follow that thread. "Lately? The future. Everyone expects me to go into broadcasting or PR because I'm good with people, but I'm more interested in documentary filmmaking. The kind that changes how people see the world." A pause, then a self-conscious laugh. "Sorry, that sounds pretentious." "It doesn't," I assured quickly. "It sounds passionate. There's nothing pretentious about knowing what you want. What about you? What keeps Alex the literature scholar awake in the dark hours?" I hesitated, not accustomed to sharing my inner thoughts so readily. But something about the intimate space, the unusual circumstances, and Jamie's earnest interest made me answer honestly. Fear of disappointment. My parents sacrificed a lot for me to be here. First-generation college student, full ride or nothing. Sometimes I feel like I'm one bad grade away from letting everyone down. I hadn't meant to reveal quite so much, but the words tumbled out before I could stop them. Jamie nodded slowly, understanding in those expressive eyes. "That's a heavy weight to carry." "It is what it is," I said, suddenly uncomfortable with the focus on my insecurities. "Anyway, how much longer do you think this drill will last?" "It's been at least 20 minutes. Jamie checked a phone. 23 minutes, to be exact. Should be wrapping up soon. Then, with a mischievous smile that transformed the serious moment, "Unless they forgot about us. We could be trapped here forever, forced to survive on nothing but knowledge and dust." "There are worse fates," I replied, finding myself smiling back. At least we have good company. The words slipped out before I could censor them, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Jamie's smile widened, eyes lighting up with something that made my heart beat a little faster. We do, don't we? Jamie said softly, holding my gaze until I had to look away, suddenly fascinated by the spines of nearby books. The air between us had shifted, charged with something I wasn't quite ready to name. The narrow space seemed to grow even smaller, more intimate. I was acutely aware of our knees touching, the sound of Jamie's breathing, the faint scent of coffee, and something citrusy that I assumed was shampoo or cologne. Can I ask you something? Jamie's voice had dropped to almost a whisper, though there was no one nearby to overhear us. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Have you ever been attracted to someone unexpected? Someone who wasn't your usual type? My heart hammered against my ribs. Was this conversation really happening, or was I misreading the situation entirely? I'm not sure I have a usual type, I admitted. I don't date much. Too busy studying? Jamie asked, but the tone was gentle, curious rather than judgmental. Partly that. Partly just never meeting anyone who. I trailed off, unsure how to finish that thought without revealing too much. Anyone who made it worth the risk? Jamie suggested. I nodded, meeting those eyes again and finding them softer than before, questioning but patient. I think that's normal, Jamie continued. Connections, real ones, are rare. When you find one, it stands out. Like right now. Don't you feel it? The directness of the question startled me. I'd spent years perfecting the art of academic analysis, dissecting texts and arguments with precision. But faced with this simple question about my own feelings, I found myself wordless. I don't know what you mean, I lied, a weak attempt at self-preservation. Jamie smiled, seeing through me completely. Yes, you do. The way conversation flows when it usually doesn't. The way you keep looking at my lips when you think I won't notice. The way neither of us has checked the time in the last 5 minutes despite being so concerned about wasting study time. I swallowed hard, caught in my transparent deception. I've never, with someone I barely know. We don't barely know each other anymore, do we? Not after this conversation. Jamie shifted slightly closer. Besides, sometimes the people we think we barely know are the ones who see us most clearly. I couldn't argue with that logic. In just half an hour of real conversation, Jamie had seen parts of me that friends of years hadn't glimpsed, and I'd seen beyond the social charisma to the thoughtful, slightly uncertain person beneath. We should probably be quiet, I whispered, suddenly remembering we were supposed to be following drill protocols. It is a lockdown drill, after all. Jamie's eyes sparkled with mischief. You're right. We should practice being very, very quiet. And then, leaning even closer, I could suggest some quiet practice that might be more interesting than sitting in silence. My breath caught. What kind of practice? The kind where we see if we can communicate without words. The kind where we test if attraction is just in our heads or if there's something real here. Jamie's gaze dropped to my lips, making the suggestion unmistakable. Only if you want to, of course. Time seemed suspended in that moment. The rational part of my brain listed all the reasons this was a bad idea. We were in the library, albeit hidden away. We were supposed to be taking a safety drill seriously. We had only just begun to know each other. But another part, a part one rarely listened to, whispered that some opportunities come once and never again. I want to, I heard myself say, the words barely audible. Jamie's smile was soft, almost tender as a hand reached up to gently cup my cheek. Remember, we have to be very quiet. And then we were kissing, a tentative press of lips that quickly deepened into something more urgent. Jamie tasted like mint and possibility, and I found myself melting into the kiss, my hands finding their way to soft hair, pulling us closer together. The world narrowed to this tiny space between bookshelves, to the points where our bodies connected, to the soft sounds we tried to suppress. When we finally broke apart, breathless and slightly dazed, I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. Jamie mirrored it, looking as surprised and delighted as I felt. Well, Jamie whispered, I'd say we're excellent at being quiet. I laughed softly, feeling lighter than I had in weeks, maybe months. A skill worth developing, clearly. Definitely worth more practice, Jamie agreed, brushing a strand of hair from my face with a gentleness that made my heart flutter. Maybe somewhere more comfortable next time, though. The implication of a next time sent a thrill through me. Before I could respond, however, the library's intercom system crackled to life once more. Attention, all library patrons and staff. The lockdown drill has now concluded. Thank you for your cooperation. You may return to your regular activities. Again, the drill has concluded. Reality crashed back in with those words. The bubble we'd created between the stacks suddenly felt fragile, and I wondered if whatever had sparked between us would survive exposure to the normal world. Jamie seemed to read my thoughts. Don't overthink this, Alex. What happened here was real. Was it? Or was it just the strange circumstance? Two people thrown together in an unusual situation, feeling something that wouldn't exist outside these stacks. The academic in me couldn't help analyzing, trying to categorize and understand. Jamie stood, offering a hand to help me up. When I took it, I was pulled not just to my feet, but into another brief, sweet kiss. That's not circumstantial, Jamie said firmly. That's chemistry, and I'd like to explore it further, if you would. Maybe over coffee after your Victorian literature final. The librarian reappeared before I could answer, checking to make sure we were okay and urging us back to the main areas of the library. As we gathered our things and followed her, Jamie whispered, "Think about it. No pressure." But as we emerged from the stacks, returning to our abandoned study table where our books still lay open, I already knew my answer. Some risks were worth taking, some connections too rare to ignore, and sometimes the most unexpected moments, like being trapped during an emergency drill with someone you barely knew, could change the course of your life. Coffee sounds perfect, I said as we settled back into our chairs. I finish at 3 on Thursday. Jamie's smile was radiant. It's a date. We returned to our studying, but everything had shifted. The silence between us now was charged with possibility, with shared secrets and the anticipation of what might come next. Every so often, our eyes would meet across the table, and I'd feel that same flutter in my chest, that recognition of something unexpected but undeniably right. The emergency drill had trapped us in the library stacks for just 30 minutes, but in that brief time, something had been set free, something I hadn't even known was caged within me. As I tried to focus on Victorian literature, my mind kept returning to that moment between the shelves, to quiet practice and the taste of mint, to the strange alchemy that can transform strangers into something more. By the time we packed up our things hours later, exchanging phone numbers and shy smiles, I knew that whatever happened next, whether it lasted a week, a semester, or years, I would never regret saying yes to coffee, to connection, to the unexpected joy of finding someone who saw me clearly in the quiet spaces between books. And as we walked out of the library together into the evening air, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the most important lessons happen outside the curriculum, in the unplanned moments when life interrupts your carefully constructed schedule and offers something better instead. Total_char_count, 18,767.